What if I told you that manipulating space-time curvature could turn billionaires into beggars overnight, while making your morning commute a journey through literal impossibility? Buckle up, because we're about to explore a world where the fabric of reality itself becomes humanity's newest playground. Imagine waking up tomorrow to discover that scientists have cracked the code to bend space-time like origami. At first glance, you might think about anti-gravity cars or time machines. But the real story lies in the consequences you'd never see coming. Let's start with something that would reshape civilization itself. Space-time would become the ultimate currency. Forget gold, oil, or cryptocurrency. When you can literally create pockets of accelerated time, every second becomes a tradable commodity. Imagine corporations selling you extra hours in your day, while governments hoard strategic reserves of slowed time for national emergencies. Wealthy individuals wouldn't just buy expensive cars anymore. They'd purchase personal time bubbles where a weekend vacation could last subjective months while only minutes pass in the outside world. Meanwhile, the poor would be stuck in accelerated zones, their lives racing by while the rich savor every moment in temporal luxury. The phrase, "time is money," would become devastatingly literal. But here's where it gets truly bizarre. Architecture would undergo a revolution that would make modern skyscrapers look like cave paintings. Buildings wouldn't just go up or out anymore. They'd fold through dimensions, creating structures that are simultaneously small on the outside and massive on the inside. Your studio apartment could contain a mansion simply by curving space inward on itself. Cities would become impossible geometric puzzles. You might walk through a door and emerge on the other side of the planet, or climb stairs that lead to yesterday. Urban planners would need degrees in theoretical physics just to design a parking garage. The concept of location would become as fluid as the concept of time. Now consider something even more mind-bending. The entertainment industry would explode into realms of impossibility. Movies wouldn't just show you other worlds. They'd literally transport you to pocket universes crafted by directors. Imagine attending a concert where the musician plays with time itself, stretching single notes across hours of subjective experience, or compressing entire symphonies into heartbeats. Sports would evolve beyond recognition. Forget the Olympics as we know them. Athletes would compete in gravitational obstacle courses, racing through twisted space-time where up and down become meaningless concepts. The most skilled competitors wouldn't just be fast or strong. They'd need to navigate through regions where cause and effect operate in reverse. But perhaps the most profound change would be psychological. Humans have evolved to understand reality as fixed and predictable. When space-time becomes malleable, our fundamental relationship with existence would shatter. Mental health professionals would face entirely new categories of disorders. Temporal dissociation, where people lose track of which time stream they belong to, or spatial anxiety, triggered by living in geometrically impossible spaces. Children growing up in this reality would develop cognitive abilities that current humans couldn't even comprehend. Their brains would adapt to navigate four-dimensional spaces as naturally as we walk down a street. They'd think in terms of probability curves and causal loops, making them as different from us as we are from our prehistoric ancestors. Education systems would collapse and rebuild from scratch. Teaching children about straight lines and parallel planes would become as outdated as teaching them about flat Earth theory. Mathematics would expand beyond current limits as students learn to calculate in curved geometries where 2 plus 2 might equal 5, depending on local space-time conditions. The legal system would face an existential crisis. How do you prosecute someone for a crime they committed in a timeline that no longer exists? What happens when a defendant claims they were in a different dimensional fold when the alleged offense occurred? Courts would need to employ teams of physicists just to determine if events actually happened in a legally recognizable sequence. Medicine would transform into something resembling magic. Doctors wouldn't just treat diseases. They'd manipulate the temporal flow around injuries, allowing wounds to heal by reversing their local timeline. Cancer treatments could involve isolating tumors in accelerated time pockets where they age rapidly and die, while the surrounding healthy tissue remains unaffected. But with great power comes unexpected consequences. Space-time manipulation would create new forms of addiction more powerful than any drug. People would become hooked on temporal highs, spending subjective years in blissful moments while their real bodies waste away in minutes. Rehabilitation centers would need to employ teams of physicists to extract addicts from their personal time loops. The environment would face threats we can't currently imagine. Reckless space-time manipulation could create permanent scars in reality itself. Imagine regions where gravity flows upward or zones where time runs backward, creating ecological disasters that persist across multiple timelines. Environmental protection would require safeguarding not just physical space, but the integrity of space-time itself. International relations would become impossibly complex. How do you maintain diplomatic relations with a country that exists 3 hours in the past? Trade agreements would need to account for temporal exchange rates. Wars could be fought across multiple timelines simultaneously, with battles affecting events that happened before the conflict even began. Religion and philosophy would undergo radical transformations. If humans can manipulate the fundamental structure of reality, what does that say about the nature of divine power? Some would argue that space-time manipulation proves we're approaching godhood. Others would claim it demonstrates that reality is just an illusion, leading to new forms of nihilism or enlightenment. Perhaps most surprisingly, the concept of privacy would evolve in unexpected directions. When space can be folded and time can be stretched, traditional notions of personal boundaries would become meaningless. Your private thoughts might leak into adjacent dimensional pockets, while your memories could accidentally spill backward through time. Art would transcend current limitations, with sculptors crafting works that exist in multiple time periods simultaneously. Painters would create canvases that show different images depending on the viewer's temporal perspective. Musicians would compose symphonies that play across decades, with movements separated by years of silence. The job market would be revolutionized by occupations we can't currently imagine. Temporal architects would design experiences rather than buildings. Space-time farmers would cultivate pockets of accelerated growth for agriculture. Reality auditors would ensure that manipulated regions don't accidentally erase important historical events. So, in this world where space-time bends to human will, the most profound changes wouldn't be the obvious ones like flying cars or time travel. Instead, we'd see the emergence of temporal inequality, four-dimensional architecture, reality addiction, and the evolution of human consciousness itself. The question isn't whether we'd want this power, but whether we'd still be recognizably human after wielding it. In a universe where reality becomes as malleable as clay, what happens to the clay sculptors themselves?